Let's talk about something that sounds, well, completely impossible. What if being owed money could actually get you into trouble? What if the system that's supposed to protect you, the creditor, actually turns against you? It sounds totally backward, right? But believe it or not, for thousands of businesses, this is the reality. Okay, just picture this. You run a small business, or maybe you're a freelancer. You do the work, you deliver the project, but your client, a big, powerful client, just doesn't pay. Then, because you haven't been paid, you can't pay your own bills. And the next thing you know, the legal system isn't going after them, it's coming after you. You're the one being branded as unreliable. How on earth does the victim end up looking like the villain? That's exactly what we're going to unpack. And this is the absurd reality, laid out step by step. First, a government entity owes your company money. Seems straightforward. But then, because they haven't paid you, your cash flow is shot. You can't pay your own suppliers. And here's the kicker, the final insane twist. You are the one who gets officially blacklisted as a discredited debtor. And that label, it comes with some really serious penalties. Meanwhile, the one who started this whole mess, they often face no consequences at all. So you might be thinking, okay, that sounds crazy, but this must be some rare, isolated glitch in the system, right? Well, that's the thing. It's not. This is a massive, widespread problem, and the amount of money involved is just staggering. So if you look at the official numbers from China's Supreme People's Court, you'll see that the court system recently helped clear about 31 billion yuan in overdue payments for small businesses. And, on the surface, that sounds pretty good. It sounds like progress is being made. But talk to anyone actually dealing with this, and they'll tell you that number, as big as it sounds, is just a drop in the bucket. It doesn't even come close to showing the real scale of what's going on. Because the reality is, the total debt that government and state-owned companies owe to private businesses, well, it's estimated to be in the trillions of yuan. And when you're talking trillions, 31 billion is, it's practically a rounding error. So you can see the official efforts aren't even scratching the surface. So who are the main players in this whole drama? Well, it's pretty clear-cut. The victims are overwhelmingly private businesses. We're talking over 90% of them. These are the small and medium-sized companies, the suppliers, the contractors, basically the backbone of the economy. And the ones not paying their bills? It's mostly local governments and state-owned enterprises, often using these things called local financing vehicles to get projects built. Okay, so the big question is, why can't the legal system just fix this? Can a private company just sue the government, win the case, and get their money? Well, no, not really. It turns out there are 3 huge obstacles baked right into the system that make the law pretty much powerless when it goes up against the state. All right, let's break down that first obstacle. Let's say you actually manage to sue the government and you win. You think that's game over, right? But trying to actually collect the money is a whole other battle. And why? Because a lot of government assets are legally protected. You can't touch them. A court literally cannot seize certain assets. We're talking about fiscal funds, government office buildings, official cars, you name it. Basically, any property that's considered essential for public functions is totally immune. So a government agency can just say, oh, that money is in a special fiscal account, and boom, that court judgment you fought so hard for becomes a completely worthless piece of paper. Okay, obstacle number 2, a glaring double standard when it comes to punishment. The penalties for being labeled discredited, yeah, they're not applied equally, not even close. For a private company, getting blacklisted is absolutely devastating. The person in charge can be banned from taking high-speed trains or flights. The company itself can't get loans. It's blocked from bidding on new projects. It's a business death sentence. But for a government agency, the Supreme Court has flat out said these limits don't apply to them. There are no real punishments for the officials responsible. So the law has teeth, for sure, but it only seems to bite one side. And that brings us to our third and maybe the most important obstacle of all, the fundamental power imbalance between the courts and the government itself. See, instead of a court just enforcing its own ruling, what often happens is something called government-court coordination. And what that really means is that the legal dispute gets settled behind the scenes, through negotiations. In other words, the government body that owes you the money is the one who gets to decide how much they'll pay back and when. They're not being forced by a court. At the end of the day, power dictates the outcome, not the law. So when you put these 3 obstacles together, protected assets, toothless punishments for the state, and this unequal power dynamic, what you get is a really devastating trap.
It's a system that takes the initial victim, the one who wasn't paid, and turns them into the official bad guy.
Let's just walk through this vicious cycle one more time because it's wild. A private company does a job for a state client. The state client doesn't pay up. The company then runs out of cash, so they can't pay their own suppliers or their employees. So what happens next? Those suppliers or employees sue the private company. And because the company genuinely has no money, it loses the case and gets slapped on that discredited blacklist. All while the original debtor, the state entity, just walks away, completely scot-free. And the aftermath? Wow, it's just so stark. You can see it here. The state defaulter, they just keep on operating like nothing happened, issuing bonds, getting financing, starting new projects. But the private victim, they are completely paralyzed. They can't get loans, they're banned from projects, they can't even travel freely. Their ability to do business just plummets, and many end up going bankrupt. The roles of victim and perpetrator get completely flipped on their head.
So, what is really going on here? If the legal system is producing such a fundamentally unjust outcome, what is its real purpose? Well, the answer is, this isn't about the letter of the law. This is about the logic of power. What all of this reveals is a system that's playing by two different rulebooks. It's pretty clear when you look at it this way. For state entities, the number one priority is maintaining the stability of power. Defaulting on a debt? That's an option on the table. They're functionally exempt from any real punishment. But for private firms, the priority is strict enforcement of contracts. Default is punished severely, and they are held strictly accountable. And this really is the crucial takeaway from all of this. This isn't a bug in the system. It's a feature. The whole thing is structured to allow powerful state actors to walk away from their obligations while using the full force of the law to make sure their weaker, private creditors can't fight back. You know, in theory, the whole point of contract law is to protect property rights. But in this reality, the system's true priority is ensuring the stability of the state itself. And the result? The law stops being an impartial judge of what's right and wrong. Instead, it just becomes a tool for management, a way to handle social and economic pressures in a way that always benefits the state. And that leaves us with one last big question. This whole paradox exists because the law is ultimately being used as a tool of state power. So if the law is a tool for power, who, then, is a tool for the people?